YouTube's awake. The YouTube always wakes up slowest. Let's make sure it's with us and that it's present and that it's happy. There it is. It's coming. It's coming to life, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope you're all... I mean, it's really... Yeah, it's another day in quarantine. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone is staying safe. I hope everyone is, making the most of this. I don't, stay safe, be well, wash those hands. You know the drill. But it is Friday. You're watching Get Your News On with Ron. And like most Fridays, whenever I stream, I do have a guest today. This guy has been a friend of mine in comedy for, almost the entire duration. I've known this guy a long time. He tours all across the country. He opens for Lee Camp a lot, mutual friend of ours. And he has a podcast called Forkful of Noodles. And that's actually what we're talking about today, because he had a kind of interesting thing happen to him that I've been wanting to unpack with him on the show. But his podcast was censored, and we're not entirely sure why. But he's gonna enlighten us today. Please welcome back to the show a good buddy of the show, Mr. Krish Mohan. Krish, how's it going, buddy?
It is. It's going as good as it is gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
with this whole quarantine situation.
Well, I know you're like. I mean, you do a ton of road work, a lot more so than I do these days. So I know that you're kind of grounded, which isn't really your thing.
Yeah,
I don't think it's anyone's thing.
No, I don't think anybody wants to be stuck at home all day. But I'm off the road now for at least 6 weeks, at least till the middle of May is what it's looking like right now. So hopefully it won't like bleed into June or anything like that, and we'll have this thing taken care of by that. Fingers crossed. That is the hope. But who knows?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like for us too. Both myself solo and both Graham and I. It looks like. I mean, there are no official announcements yet, by the way, for anyone on the internet. But it looks like April dates are going to be rescheduled, and hopefully, fingers crossed, things resume in the middle of May, and all those dates will be as is. And the dates that we need to reschedule, will be announcing all the rescheduled dates very shortly. That includes Florida, the Northwest, myself, and Pittsburgh. Anyway, but nothing official yet, folks, but we're working on it. Krish, so your podcast had a little bit of a thing happen recently. Go ahead and enlighten us.
So Spotify on, I think it was March 8th, they completely deleted my podcast, which included like getting it off iTunes. So basically what happened was 2 days before that, I got a censorship, a copyright claim. They said that somebody placed a copyright claim. So immediately, I got 4 emails, and I responded to all of them, because I was hosting my podcast with a company called Anchor.fm. So I contacted them, I contacted Spotify, and I got nothing in return. So they basically said they kept saying hey, there's a copyright infringement claim, and that's it.
Well, what'd you do?
I have no idea. They
wow.
To this date have not responded to what that copyright claim was.
Do you at least know what it might be? Were you using anything from cable news and doing commentary on it, or nothing?
No, I've done that
music. Have you done?
Yeah,
was there any music?
I have intro music, which is 15 to 20 seconds, and I've had intro music on for a year and a half, and I just changed it to a band called Old Game back in January, but they know I'm using their song. I credit their song. I put a link to their Bandcamp and stuff.
And you had their permission,
and I had their permission to do it. Yeah, I talked to the lead singer. She was very excited to have me, use their song as the intro. It's a great song. It's a great band. And so that's why it was kind of strange. And when I asked Spotify, can you give me details? They flat out didn't tell me anything for 2 days.
Right. Because if it was something, it could have been maybe the band themselves, but maybe there was some kind of algorithm that picked it up, or something like that, where they were like, oh yeah, this algorithm picked this up, and then you would have to fill out a form that says like, or something saying, no, this is being used by permission.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I remember it was kind of a funny, for instance, that I can tell going on that. So I have 2 songs on my stand-up album that I just kind of recorded and I threw at the end of the stand-up album for fun. And the Jimmy Dore Show live stream used to play one of them. And then they'd be like, hey, by the way, this is Ron. And they would play that song. And like one day they got a warning. And I'm like sitting in the studio, like I'm like right there. And, you know, like they issued a warning. It wasn't an actual strike, or I would have been like really kind of embarrassed. But there was a warning where it's like, by the way, this is copywritten by Ron Placone and On Tour Records. And they're like, Ron, you don't want us playing this, huh? And I'm like, oh, Jesus, I didn't know that was going to happen. Because like it just got registered with like the YouTube, like the YouTube music, you know how you can register it with YouTube. The label did that, which is good. Like I'm glad they did it, but because like it was played, it came up, and I mean we sorted it out. It was no problem, but yeah. Anyway,
I get emails from that too. Is because when I upload my stand up to YouTube, they'll send me an email, be like, "There's a copyright claim," and it's like, yeah, it's just me.
I'm the copyright owner. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the guy that's making it.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword because I mean, it does help artists that things like that exist, but when it's being done by like a machine, essentially, you know, sometimes context gets lost where, you know, you get a lot of claims that aren't very, you know, aren't justified and are kind of like not helpful.
That's exactly what this one was. And so basically like all that stuff happens on Friday. And then I emailed like whatever the podcast at Spotify or whatever that email is. And I just told them like, hey, this is something that popped up. No one's able to give me any answers. Can you guys help me out? And then on Sunday morning at like, I think it was like at 4:00 in the morning, I get an email that my podcast is completely deleted.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, how many copyrights were there, or how many supposed strikes were there total? Just the one thing.
It's the one. Yeah.
And you never heard anything back.
I never heard anything back.
And then they just deleted your podcast.
Yep.
And so, by they, is it Spotify took you off the like the archive or?
So Spotify told me that they were gonna stop uploading my podcast to Spotify until this thing is sorted out. That was sort of part of the warning. So I was like, all right, well, I mean, I can still upload episodes and it'll be fine because at least it'll go out to like Stitcher and iTunes and stuff like that. And up till March 7th, it did. And I think even now, like I had to like switch hosts and stuff because what I found out was Anchor.fm is owned by Spotify, which is why it was easy for them to just completely delete my podcast. Like I couldn't log into my account. I couldn't get my RSS feedback to be like, okay, maybe I'll change the host since I'm not getting any answers. They just got rid of it. And nobody was around on Sunday to like talk to me about it. So like March 8th, I wake up, all this stuff happens. And
did you freak out?
What happened? Oh yeah, I yeah, immediately.
I mean, that's kind of like, whoa, dude. My podcast is like this big online imprint of my work is just gone.
It's like over 200 episodes and 5 years worth of content that I'd put up, just gone, right? And there's no answer for it. So I got on like Facebook and Twitter and all this other stuff. And a bunch of people did bring up like, oh, if you have music on your podcast, they you know, like they'll flag it or whatever.
Yeah, no, I realized like the questions I asked you initially are probably like the first set of questions people ask. And you're like, yeah, been through this. That's not been through this. That's not the situation. It's like one of those things like, oh, well, did you try turning it off and turning it back on again? Usually that's the problem. Did you turn it off? Did you wait 5 seconds? A lot of people, they forget to wait the 5 seconds. Did you do that? And it still didn't? Well, I'm stumped.
I do appreciate that in a world that virtually has no journalists, that you are taking the role of being a journalist and actually asking questions. So I appreciate that.
Did you use someone's tune? But all right. So where are you at now? Have you heard anything as of now? Because this happened
Yeah.
a little over a week ago at this point.
Yeah, it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks
Almost
ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
March 7th is about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So I did hear back on Monday, and a lot of what they were telling me on Monday was basically the same thing. You got a copyright thing. We had to take your podcast, and then they actually changed it to there was a potential copyright claim, not even a full copyright claim. They were just like, we might think that there's a copyright claim on your account, so we have to take it very seriously and delete the whole thing. That's what they told me. And I was like,
over just a potential, maybe there's an issue here.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So I kept asking, like, can you give me details on it? And they just didn't. So Lee Camp tweeted about it because I was like, hey man, this is like getting crazy. And then I guess one of Lee's fans pointed out that Michael Moore uses Anchor.fm.
I was going to say, I think that's the place Michael Moore advertises a bunch.
Yeah.
Or he uses them, and so he plugs them on his podcast.
That's the hosting site. Yeah.
I've only listened to like 1 or 2 episodes of his podcast, but the one that was, I thought, a very, very powerful podcast, not to divert too much, but his Liz Warren episode was phenomenal.
Oh, really?
Dude, so he really, and this was when, of course, when the whole like, oh, Bernie told me a woman can't be president in this dinner meeting that I swear this happened. This was when all that was going down.
Right.
And Michael Moore did this podcast. And to his credit, Michael Moore wasn't trying to be like, I'm still an outsider punching up. Like, Michael Moore was like, no, I'm an insider now. I get it. And Liz Warren is like my colleague. So is Bernie Sanders. And for so many years, I gave Liz Warren the benefit of the doubt about these little things. And now when they all add up, I realize I really can't trust this person. Those weren't his exact words, but that's basically the story he was unpacking. And it's a really powerful podcast. And honestly, I think that podcast probably played a role in Liz Warren's lack of success. So,
yeah, that whole debacle, it
backfired on her big time.
Oh, huge. I had to talk to some friends that supported Elizabeth Warren over Bernie Sanders. And I was like, man, I'm like, what do you do in this situation? And most of them kind of don't have an answer. They were just like, yeah, we don't know.
Well, they could have not supported Liz Warren. I mean, that was an option. Did they explore that option? Did you tell your friends that there were choices? Did you tell them, be like, hey, there's another dude who all those policies she waffles on daily, he actually stands for those.
It's ridiculous.
You could go to that one.
Ron, that is,
but they're not. Those friends aren't that close. Is that what you're saying?
That's an absurd thing. We are part of a democracy. We don't have choices. We have people that we're told to vote for. That's how democracies work, Ron. Come on, this is Civics 101. This is Civics 101.
All right. Well, it's not my place to tell you how to interact with your friends.
When I took the citizenship test, they were like, "Do you understand that the Democratic Party is going to pick a candidate?" And I was like,
is that on the test? They're just just so you get it. If we wanted to go in the back room with cigars, which is what they did say during the DNC lawsuit, we can. Are you okay with this? Yes or no? And then if you pick like, oh, that doesn't sound right, they're like, come to this room. And then you don't get
yeah. The eyes wide shut.
How recent was it you officially became a citizen? Because that was recent. For those not in the know, what we're referring to here is that Krish recently became a citizen officially. You've been in the country a long time.
22 years, yeah.
Yeah, so most of your life.
Yep, yeah. So I became a citizen in December 18th, 2019.
All right. And are you having any buyer's remorse, or are you still on board with that?
Oh, God. Every day.
Do you still feel great about that decision, or are you like, could I have approached this differently?
I will say, like, I'm excited that Trump is finally like, hey, I think we're gonna do universal basic income for a little bit, and it's gonna be for all American citizens. I'm like, I'm one of those now.
That's true. You'll get a UBI potentially. Do you think they're? I mean, I feel like they kind of have to, but on the same note, I'm like, they've already proven. I mean, now more than ever before, and I feel like all of our lifetimes, the United States government as a whole, and this is a bipartisan effort with both Republicans and Democrats, have really said loudly, we don't care about you at all. You're on your own. Screw you. I mean, our response to this whole thing is on path with third world countries, and it's not because we don't have the resources. It's because we don't look out for our citizens. It's just something we don't do.
Yeah, that's never been. I don't remember at any point that we've ever faced a crisis that it's been the citizens first. It's always been, let's bail out the corporations. You know, like we were talking about, right before we recorded, was the airlines aren't giving any refunds, but they got what, a $51 billion bailout for. Well, it's like, you're not giving anybody refunds. You're just giving anybody credits. And then you had $1.5 trillion
to the banks.
Just banks. Yeah.
I mean, it's like basically like, hey, people don't know what they're gonna do. People like they can't work. And they can't, like, they don't know what to do. They don't know how they're going to get food. They don't know how they're going to pay their rent. The government's like, whatever, not our problem. But then the banks are like, hey, we just like it when we have more money than what we have right now. I mean, really, we're actually totally fine. But we could go for some more money. And the government's just like, how much do you want, boo? We got you. Yeah, we got you. What you need. What you need. Which is exactly what they did. And then they admitted that's exactly what they basically said. Hey, all you MMT people, you're 100% right, by the way. You're totally right on. Because all we did was we just moved this decimal point and gave that money to the banks. We could do that for you tomorrow. Put that in circulation in the form of an emergency UBI stimulus.
That's crazy.
And we're not going to do that because screw you.
So, I mean, but where's that money going to come from, Rob?
Where's that money going to come from? Even though they already told us exactly where it's coming from. And then, Chuck Schumer's like, look, I know the idea of an emergency UBI stimulus sounds nice, but have you heard of small business loans at low interest? Hear me out. It's unreal.
That's
it is
what we
absolutely
need, right? That's what we need is a loan when nobody is making any money to pay out those loans.
You know what? Whenever you're in dire straits and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to keep my employees. I don't know. I'm worried about my family, especially those that are more susceptible. Usually the next thing on your mind is like, I should probably take on some more debt.
Yeah.
I should probably get a little more of it.
I was actually
or at least some of it. Maybe I don't have any yet. And I mean, are you really alive if you don't have any? Let's take on some debt for no reason.
For a long time, I didn't have to make any sort of like payments. I didn't have a credit card or like a car loan or anything. And then I had to buy a new car. So now I have a car loan, and boy, howdy, do I like every time I write that check, my heart.
You're like freedom.
Yeah, I feel it.
You're like, I'm a citizen and I feel this freedom.
Yeah.
To pay up. What kind of wheels did you get?
I got a Honda CR-V.
Okay.
So I had I've had
because every now and again you got to sleep in that thing.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I remember those days. It wasn't that long ago.
I've definitely pulled off at some rest areas and like taken a little nap and been like, oh, this is comfortable. There's so much room to just live in here.
Yeah, I mean, dude, my 98 Accord was an LX, and you remember that thing. You've seen that thing. Yeah, that thing. That thing was that was a poet. That car was like, that car was like, I mean, it was only a 98, but like you look at that car and you're like, oh man, that car was on active duty in Nam. That car got exposed to Agent Orange, has a lot of stories. That car. Like that car was like
you turned it on and had a story to tell you.
Dude.
Let me tell you that story.
Well, I do still name my cars, and that car was like Eddie, because it's like the day I got that car, I'm like, this car is a dude. This car is a fucking battered, former alcoholic dude that has a lot of stories. That's just like let me tell you about Haight Ashbury at 67. Yes, Eddie, I'm listening. But so anyway, what's the status of your podcast now? Like what's going to happen?
So they did reinstate it. So when Lee tweeted about it and everybody kind of jumped on board, they got back to me and they were like, hey, guess what? It's going to come back in 2 days. Isn't that exciting? So I asked them again. I was like, that's great. But what happened? Why did you guys delete it in the first place? It makes absolutely no sense. And the only thing that I could think of were the last two podcasts I put up. I basically talked about everybody kind of endorsing Joe Biden right before Super Tuesday, which seemed very strange to me because Biden wasn't even doing all that well. And all of a sudden he wins South Carolina, and it's like Pete Buttigieg endorsed him, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala, all these people that attacked him during the first 4 debates, they're all endorsing him, and it seemed really strange. So I did, and then I talked about how I think Tulsi Gabbard needs to be on the debate stage. And the day after I put those episodes up, they deleted the podcast. So it was very much like, yeah, it seemed like, okay, a lot of these anti-establishment topics don't seem to be what Spotify wants. So they reinstated the podcast, and because of how many people were like retweeting about what Lee had posted up, I think they expedited the process and got my account on Anchor.fm back up. So basically, once
what about your archive? Is your archive there?
My archive's back up as well. Yeah. So all of it's back up, and immediately I was like, I gotta friggin' move my podcast off this platform so that they can't delete it again. So I'm back on Libsyn, which the reason I was on Anchor is because it's free and doesn't have any hosting charges. But at this point, it's like, I'll take some hosting charges.
I guess you might get what you pay for.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I was thinking, I was thinking about looking into Anchor before, but I'm on Libsyn too, and knock on wood, I've been happy with it. So I don't think I'm going anywhere.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stay with them because they're pretty...
they do get back to you when you have an issue.
They do.
Anytime I've had an issue, they've always gotten back to me. So
when I made the transfer, I had to email them, and they got back to me within like 2 hours, and they gave me directions on what Anchor needs to do.
And they were like, "Never doubt us again.
Yeah,
never doubt us again. I hope you learned your lesson."
Yeah.
So are you getting the archive back too? Like everything's just kind of back? Oh, good.
It's all back. So they reset the counter on Libsyn. I've had to up how much I'm uploading, because at this point with the quarantine, I'm putting out videos every single day. Kind of more looser, rantier videos, and then kind of still writing, newer episodes of Forkful. But since I have to do a lot of research when I talk about these bigger ideas, I'm taking the written episodes a little bit slower. There's also a lot more production for it. So I'm back on Libsyn. I think everything should be updating as it was as of today. That's what they told me. They did a quote unquote 301 redirect is what it's called. That gets like all of your stats, and it connects all of basically the RSS feeds get reconnected back to where they need to be. So everything should be back to where it should be. But for a little while, I legitimately thought I had like lost 5 years worth of work, and would have to completely restart. Go back to the YouTube archives and download all the audio from
that
there.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Oh yeah,
dude,
I tried to think of how long it would take, and it would be a couple of days.
Yeah, if you did nothing else, if you just did nothing but that for like 10 hours a day. Oh, that's brutal. Well, I'm glad you don't have to go through that. One last question, man, because you brought up, you did bring up Tulsi Gabbard. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you that Tulsi Gabbard? I know. I guess I should make it 8 to 10, man, because I know you're at least pretty happy.
Yeah,
at least pretty happy. She endorsed Joe Biden.
Let me tell you about my good friend Joe Biden. And
he's your friend.
He's a good guy.
I heard his heart's really good. He's got a good heart.
Good place.
Good
his
heart.
Brain, not so much.
But the heart makes up for the brain.
That's
what people they said that about George W. Bush. Remember that? Like they were like, he's got a good heart.
He's got like a 4-year-old's brain, but like a 30-year-old's heart. But like a 30-year-old that's been eating McDonald's straight for 18 straight years. That kind of a heart.
And really loves to drop bombs on people.
And loves
That's the heart, like the heart, like every heartbeat, they just want that to be a drone flying over. That's what they want.
They're like, how many Middle Eastern and Latin American countries can we bomb with every heartbeat? out of love.
Mhm.
Those are love bombs, is what that is. Those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
they're just bombs filled with love. And sometimes the love is so it's so much that it destroys a wedding, just like it
Yeah.
destroys a wedding. That's how you know that it's true love. Is that's man, that's the hardest part for me to wrap my head around this endorsement is this guy, Joe Biden voted for the Iraq war, and then he
Yeah.
talked down to a UN weapons inspector that was basically like, I don't think you guys should go to war. Like he called him like Scotty boy, and he said that he was making the big decision. Like Scott Ritter on Aaron Mate, he like that. Listening to those clips is just infuriating. Where it's like this guy's like, don't go to
Well,
war.
every Joe Biden clip is infuriating. I mean, from past to present, you can find footage of him saying he's going to cut Social Security, saying that he wants to build a border wall. Well, he called it a fence, but he was okay the same way Trump is.
Right.
I mean, this guy has so many skeletons in his closet. He doesn't need to decorate for Halloween. I think he's going to lose Mercer.
Oh my God,
have always thought from day one, there's no way he could beat Trump anyway. But then, as of recent, I'm like, well, if Trump totally mishandles this situation, maybe anyone could beat him because it'll just be. But Trump's approval rating is going up right now. Trump's approval rating is going up right now because the Democrats are fumbling about small business loans, where Donald Trump is actually saying, I want to put money in the hands of people. Whether it's going to send checks. Yeah, I mean, it's probably, he's probably just doing what he knows he has to do to get reelected, but whatever. But so now it's like, okay, this is for sure. Like, there's no way Joe Biden's going to beat him.
Oh, absolutely not.
I mean, the entire establishment is rallying behind this loser.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's kind of crazy about it. Yeah, I mean, this guy's come out in the middle of a global pandemic. And when everybody is like, we should have free testing, he's like, let the insurance companies figure out how they're going to invoice you. And that's what, and it's like, no, Joe, shut up. Just everybody needs free testing right now. And we need to figure this thing out.
You know what else he did? I don't know if you saw this or not. He also, there's like already, speculation out there and potential policy out there where when there is a vaccine available, the government wants to get involved in the creation. They want to get involved in generics. Joe Biden has already sided with Big Pharma on that one. He is already doing what he needs to do to make sure people don't get that vaccine or that they pay out the wazoo for it. Joe Biden's doing that. And now he's MIA. Bernie Sanders having virtual town halls pretty much every day, encouraging people to give to organizations fighting for the relief of this, calling for an emergency UBI of $2,000 per adult, working on legislation. Joe Biden just totally MIA.
Just out.
Couldn't even figure out a live stream. His campaign ended after 4 minutes. I'm pretty sure once the V8 camcorder, once the battery's charged, he'll be back. But right now, he's just totally MIA. And it's like, this guy, when we have another pandemic, which is probably going to be a when, you think that guy could lead?
Right.
You think that guy could lead? It's unreal.
If you go to Bernie's website right now, there's basically an outline of what you need to do when we have a pandemic. From economic, what we need to do on an economic level, what we need to do on a healthcare level, what we need to do on just like a proletariat level, and like what people should be getting and how we should be working together. Like there's an outline on it on his website. And Joe Biden keeps coming out and making statements like, I will follow science. And it's like, science tells you should retire. That's what's your brain is telling you should stop. Like
science didn't stop in 1986, Joe. It didn't stop. So, I mean, it's obvious, like Bernie Sanders is the president we need, like big time. I mean, it's like, how is that? And, it's not over yet. And
That's the other thing that kind of baffles me about it. And I do get it, because I can understand the argument that like Bernie didn't really do anything to support Tulsi. Like he kept kind of, the only time that he came out, like I just talked about this on the video I just put out.
Yeah, that's no excuse for endorsing Joe Biden, though.
Absolutely
yeah.
not.
I was
don't think it's an excuse
I was
at all.
hoping for a Bernie Tulsi ticket. I was hoping for that.
Me too.
You know, and I do wish there was a little more of an olive branch between those campaigns. But that doesn't mean you go and endorse Joe Biden. Like that's there's no excuse for that.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Even if you did, there's a lot of people saying, well, she's principled and she stands by her word. Yeah, that's fine, but why wouldn't you stay principled to the message that you've been preaching for the last year and a half? That's the thing that kind of gets me, is you've been preaching this anti-war message, this anti-establishment. You've been pushing against the DNC, and then you just kind of bent at the knees, and you were like, yes, I'll bow down to this person that you have, coronated. And the thing is, I will say Joe Biden being MIA right now might be the best thing for Joe Biden, because it's like Hillary Clinton. Every time he friggin' opens his mouth, it's just like his numbers drop, and there's memes and
well, they adopted that policy early. I mean, his campaign operated that way early. They realized every time this guy talks, he can't raise his poll numbers, just like Hillary Clinton had that same problem.
Yeah.
Every time she spoke, people liked her less. So let's not let the guy speak. Now, Joe Biden, even more so than Hillary. I mean, you can find footage of Hillary being horrible to voters, telling a little girl who's concerned about fracking to go vote for Sanders. That's her right. And, well, I guess she wasn't really a little girl. She was a high school student who was over 18, but, like totally talking down to her. You can see her telling Black Lives Matter to shut up. We'll get to you later. But Joe Biden, I mean, he's flipped out on a Latino immigration activist. He's flipped out on a bunch of climate activists. I mean, the how many people from the Sunrise Movement has he just flipped out on? And those clips have all gone viral.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm not the guy for you. I think you should go vote for somebody else."
Yeah, go vote for someone else. Which, hey, that's the only advice he's given that I've taken. It's like, that's actually good advice, Joe. I did that in the primary, and no matter what happens, I'm going to do it in the general, because I'm not voting for Joe Biden. I'll write Bernie Sanders in if I have to, if it comes down to that, but I ain't voting for Joe Biden.
Well, and this is the first election that I actually get to vote in, and I'm hoping that Bernie doesn't concede. Although to me, in right now in the state of the global pandemic and where we're at, we should not be sending people to go.
No, we shouldn't be having primaries. Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be having primaries. It's kind of a mess. So it's like, well, what do you do? I mean, like, they could just like anoint someone being like, oh, well, we can't have primaries, so Joe's the guy. But we can't have primaries right now because it's not safe. The world's a mess. It's for sure a little bit of a mess.
It's like every day that I wake up, I don't want to keep talking about the COVID-19 stuff, but every day I wake up and I'm just like, oh, is this how the world's a mess because it's connected to the quarantine that we're in right now?
Well,
okay, all right.
It's kind of the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Or the elephant that's out on the street while the rest of us are inside. I mean, it's kind of like, you can't really be like, hey, so what's everyone? Yeah, I get it. We're all kind of in here. We're all
right.
So other than upping your content production, what all have you done? And then we'll let you plug everything, and then we'll be on our merry ways. But other than content production, what all have you done to pass the time a little bit? Where were you supposed to be? Were you going to be on the road this weekend?
I was actually going to record my album this weekend.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Where?
So I was going to be in DC tonight and Williamsport tomorrow. And then I was going to record 3 shows at the Pittsburgh Fringe Festival at the first week of April, and all of those got canceled.
Is the Fringe canceled? Is the Pittsburgh Fringe canceled? How is that? I know you've been doing the Fringe thing for a while. Yeah. I'm thinking about doing some of that not this year, but maybe, well, obviously not, but like next year. I was thinking about doing some of that stuff. How is the Pittsburgh? Is it good?
The Pittsburgh Fringe Festival is a great festival to like work out shows because it's a smaller festival. So like most of the venues that they get are 50 seats and under. There's
Okay.
one or two venues that's about 100 seats. So it's a really, really great festival to kind of get your sea legs underneath you. And technically it's the start of the Fringe season. Like it starts in April and goes through till November, and then they kind of reset. So
well, there's a lot. There's more.
Great.
There's more stateside Fringe festivals, and for anyone not in the know, the Fringe Festival, it's based off of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland, which is basically the biggest arts festival in the world, and they have comedy and theater and music and everything under the sun. But the United States actually has a lot of Fringe festivals as well. They're all over the world. Some of the bigger ones. Edinburgh, obviously. Orlando's is big.
Yeah.
Adelaide's in Australia, that's huge. A big one.
Edmonton, that's another big one.
Edmonton's a big one.
Yeah.
And I think Edmonton only opened their doors to comedy recently. Is that correct? Do you know?
I think the last maybe 5 years they've been doing comedy.
Really? Okay, so it's been a minute.
All
right.
Yeah,
all right, interesting.
There's some Fringe festivals that just don't like solo acts, or they don't like the stand-up acts, because what they're looking for is like weird avant-garde theater productions that have like fire spinners and people doing crazy weird shit, and it's and that's all great, but I wish they would just be like, hey, if you're a weird stand-up that's going to talk about imperialism and taking down, and powering up the people, that's nice, but don't come here.
Dude,
have some fire spinners.
I did this show, and this is, you said fire spinners, and I kind of got a smirk on my face. I did this house show in I won't even say where it was, just for the sake of, but I did a house show in the US, and it was a great time. And there was this guy there, and he was like, hey man, I was supposed to open for you. And I'm like, you were? And the person who organized the show was like in the background going, and I'm like, all right, man, I don't know anything about that. No one told me anything. But anyway, so then, and I guess this guy just like, he was planning on attending the show, but he wanted to perform, and he didn't actually do comedy. I don't know what he did exactly, but he was going to do something before I went on stage. And then after the show, he's like, hey man, can I run a bunch of jokes by you? Which, when you're a comedian, that's like exactly what you want to hear from any audience member. That's like the best. You can't wait to hear that. And like his girlfriend's like, oh dude. And I was like, sure, buddy, whatever. And he goes, and it was like, it was a while. Like it was like an uncomfortable amount of time that this dude was like he took notes and like wrote down his ideas and then was giving me all these ideas. And I'm like, look, he's trying to be friendly or whatever. I don't want to, like that is, not fun for a comedian to sit through, but I did it. I was like, okay, buddy. All right. And then this random guy who was like another artist in the area, he was a fire spinner guy, and he showed up and started, and it was awesome. He started spinning fire. He started, and he's like, and people were going nuts and like, this is so cool. And he did the thing where he would throw it, and it would come right near your face and then go back. And then, so he puts it down, and this same guy goes, I'm pretty sure I can do this. And he starts walking towards it.
No.
And the fire guy goes, dude, get away from it. And then I actually go to the fire guy. I'm just like, let him go. He's got this. I believe in this dude. I think he's got this.
That is a level of confidence that I've never had, but when I see it,
I don't know if confidence is the right word. There's a word for it. I don't know if confidence is the right one or not, but I mean, he was a nice guy, so I feel bad, like kind of having to laugh at his expense. But what are you gonna do? All right, Krish, where can people find out about you and your newly recovered podcast? This is a celebration. Go listen to Krish's podcast to celebrate. He's back. Plug everything you want to plug, Krish.
I'm going to be doing daily videos and podcasts. They're going to be looser and rantier. I'm also going to be writing a whole bunch of stuff that'll be coming out in the next couple weeks. And all of it is available on my website, which I know Ron's going to make fun of me for it, but it's ramennoodlescomedy.com. That's RAMAN noodlescomedy.com.
I just think you should use your name at this point.
I know, and I had everything ready to go.
When you have a show, does the poster on the show say ramen noodles? That's our act tonight.
No,
or does it say Krish Mohan?
It says Krish Mohan.
All right, and in your podcast, is it Forkful of Noodles by Ramen Noodles, or is it Forkful of Noodles by Krish Mohan? I just want to justify where I'm coming from.
No, I know. And this is the thing is like I had everything ready to go with like forwarding, with like a new URL and everything, and all of this crazy shit happened, and I was like, well, I guess we're gonna wait for a bit.
Yeah. I feel you.
Total upgrade. So. All my stuff is up on the website, and there's a page where you can donate. There's sustaining memberships and one-time donations. I know everybody's kind of in a tough spot, so if you have the means to, I very much appreciate it. A lot of people are being very generous right now, and it's much appreciated. But and enjoy the podcast and the daily content. Hopefully it's worth it, and I don't get burned out of myself.
Do you want to go through the super chats with me, or do you need to go?
Yeah, let's. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Tony DeMayo, thank you very much for the super chat contribution. We're looking forward to seeing you in Chicago. I can't wait for that, Tony. That's July 11th. And I'll be seeing you there. And yeah, all those dates are still on, and fingers crossed the world will be somewhat back to normal by then. And we'll be able to at least have comedy shows. Joseph, here you go, Krish. I love Krish. Can you have him on more? I would love to. I don't get to see Krish often enough. We're both usually busy with our own stuff going on. But I guess we were able to, I've had Krish on in the past, and I'm sure I'll have him on in the future, especially now that his podcast is no longer destroying America and it's back up. So there you go. Sam Dean, what's up, buddy? Say good day to Krish for me. Ron. I know Sam. I met him in Australia. So
Good day, Sam.
I know. Good day, Sam. I hope you're doing well, buddy. Please stay safe out there. Same to you, Tony and Joseph. Joseph, you're back. Definitely check out the Forkful of Noodles podcast and check out Krish's Patreon, says Joseph. Thank you for that, Joseph. And we plugged all of Krish's socials, and I will put I'll definitely make sure I put all your stuff in the YouTube description after this goes live. Thanks, so we'll make sure that happens. And Sparky says HRC's the nominee, so Tulsi's avoiding endorsing her. That's funny. That's funny. That's a good joke. I like it. It's a good joke. Cool. Well, Krish, one more time, where can people find you online? It's ramennoodlescomedy.com, right?
RAMAN noodlescomedy.com.
which is not his name. Not his name. Krish, it's good to see you, buddy. Let's catch up more often.
Absolutely.
I'll have to come back on Forkful, and I'll have to have you back here because it gets a little lonely in our apartments.
Yeah, man, I'm hanging out with my parents, and it's I'm like, other humans my age, who can I talk to about Star Trek?
I saw the first episode of the new Picard thing, and I think I'm hooked. Are you on the new Picard thing?
I'm getting through Next Generation. I'm 4 seasons in.
Oh, so you're all right. See, I'm not that militant that I'm gonna go. I mean, I watched Next Generation like when it came out in the 90s, and I was a kid. I'm not that militant that I'm gonna go back and revisit all that. But Picard, I enjoyed, and I think I got enough of. A friend filled me in. They were like, "So Next Generation," and they filled me in on all the foggy stuff. So I think I'm ready to follow along. But
that's what I saw the preview, and I'm like, I gotta figure out where this show goes and dive into this thing. That's my
I've been enjoying it. I mean, I enjoyed it. I guess I've only watched the first episode, but I'm ready to jump in. I did enjoy the first one, so we'll see. Guys, thank you so much for being part of this. This has been Get Your News On with Ron. And of course, we have our Friday guest, Mr. Krish Mohan, fantastic comedian, good buddy of mine. And Krish. Wow, I said Chris. That's horrible. That's like I've known you for like over a decade. And it's
it
like
was about to happen.
It was I guess I should tell this story now. You know this story, but the audience doesn't. So I ran into randomly, and this was years ago at this point, but I ran into somebody who went to college with Krish and was in the same program as him. And this person was like, I'm good friends with Krish. We do shows together. And she goes, Chris. And like almost like I was being offensive.
That's right.
And I'm like, what? And she goes, he goes by Chris. And I'm like, really? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, I don't think that's the case. I mean, he goes by Krish, and that's how he bills himself as a comedian. Like, it's Krish Mohan. That's what he goes by. And yeah, I don't think that's true. And she's like, he's kind of sensitive about it, but he feels better if you call him Chris. And I'm like, all right, like it almost got somewhat. So I just let it go. I'm like, okay, I'm like, all right. I don't. Okay, I'll have to ask him about that. I just left it there. I was like, I'll have to ask him about that. And then, like, I think the next day, I texted you, or I might have even seen you, because this was back when I was still living in Pittsburgh.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was just like, hey man, your name's Krish. I know that. Have you ever gone by Chris? And you were like, no, never. That's for sure never happened. And I'm like, all right. Well, apparently I did a great disservice to you by not calling you Chris for the years we've known each other. And you still have no idea where that came from.
I don't know who that could be. Yeah.
Well, I told you who it was. I mean, this is years ago. I'd have to go back, but I mean, you knew the person.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to get into details.
I'd never have gone by Chris, but I have gotten it. Like, it's funny is I think at some point in time, everybody that's known me will accidentally call me Chris.
It'll just accidentally come out wrong, and then you're like, oh man, I'm an idiot. But yeah,
and I'm like,
and I've never done that before until like right now on air. I've never ever. I've always called you Krish, but it's like, you're given a send off, and your brain goes faster than your mouth, and you just yeah.
We just made history. We
just made history. We'll give it up for Krish Mohan, who has never gone by Chris. And again, that website is ramenoodlescomedy.com. Krish, come back soon. Let's keep in touch. Absolutely. And yeah, dude, stay safe out there, buddy.
You too. Thank you.
All right, man. Peace.
Take it easy.